They told the judge this was twerking on the bus.
The internet's favorite chaos tourist is finally catching real consequences, and it's way bigger than clicks and views. Johnny Somali just stepped into something far more serious than anything he's handled before, and the vibe has flipped fast. This isn't content, it's real-world fallout. What started as trolling for attention has turned into a full legal nightmare in South Korea, where the rules are tight and patience for this kind of behavior is basically zero. Authorities don't play around there, and every move is under a microscope, so the stakes just shot up in a big way.
I think Korea is one of the stupidest countries in the world.
He's reportedly staring down up to 3 years of hard labor in prison, plus 5 years on South Korea's sex offender registry. And that's not something that just disappears or stays in one place. A record like that can stick hard and follow you, turning a wild online persona into a serious real-life problem fast. And it might not stop there, because there's a real chance this situation could follow him back to the United States, affecting major parts of his life. We're talking travel issues, restrictions, and doors quietly closing. Stuff that goes way beyond internet drama and hits where it actually matters.
They told the judge this was twerking on the bus. This was twerking. How is that a crime?
To future opportunities. And that's what makes this way bigger than just another viral moment. Now things start getting serious fast. The final trial day went down on February 27th, 2026, and even his appearance was saying a lot without him speaking much. Johnny showed up in a suit with glasses, looking more put together than people had ever seen him before, and that shift didn't go unnoticed at all. He even arrived earlier than usual, which had people watching closely, because that kind of change hinted he finally understood how serious this situation really is. Then the prosecution stepped in and laid everything out, clearly pushing for 3 years of imprisonment with hard labor, along with fines and mandatory registration requirements. This wasn't vague or light. It was direct, structured, and heavy from the start. And that recommendation didn't come out of nowhere, because all 8 charges were stacked into one case. We're talking 4 counts of obstruction of business, 2 violations under the Minor Offences Act, and 2 charges tied to deepfake-related activity, all being reviewed together, which made everything hit even harder. When you look at how cases like this are handled in South Korea, it becomes clear why this isn't something you can brush aside. The country enforces strict laws around public behavior, harassment, and digital misconduct, especially when it involves manipulated content like deepfakes. So the pressure in this case is intense.
That's my next target. Where the can I find this one?
Authorities have been cracking down hard in recent years, making it crystal clear that online actions come with real-world consequences. So when prosecutors stepped in, pushing for maximum penalties across multiple charges, it wasn't just about Johnny as an individual. It was about sending a loud message to anyone thinking about chasing attention the same way. On the defense side, his lawyer tried to push back and ease the pressure during closing arguments, but the strategy raised a lot of eyebrows. They leaned heavily on the idea that Johnny didn't fully understand Korean culture, suggesting his actions during the shopkeeper incidents came from ignorance, not intent, trying to frame it as a misunderstanding instead of something deliberate. They also argued that one of the alleged deepfake victims didn't initially recognize the content as inappropriate, attempting to downplay how serious that charge actually is. At one point, they even tried to shift some responsibility onto others who helped spread the video, almost like saying the fallout wasn't entirely on him, which didn't land well with observers. But from everything being reported, the judge didn't seem convinced by any of it, and that silence speaks volumes. That leaves Johnny in a position where the final decision could come down much harder than he expected, with the weight of every charge stacking up in a way that's tough to ignore. The judge was visibly giving Johnny Somali a serious side-eye during his closing statement, and that kind of reaction in a courtroom is never a good sign when your future is literally on the line. In that moment, the atmosphere reportedly shifted fast, making it clear the court wasn't buying what was being said at all. Then Johnny got up to speak for himself, and instead of helping his case, things took a turn that many people watching described as straight-up embarrassing. His main plea for leniency included him saying he had been held captive in South Korea for a year and a half, which instantly raised eyebrows considering how the situation even started. That claim didn't sit right with a lot of observers because the reality is he chose to travel there, filmed controversial content in public, and then faced legal consequences that limited his ability to leave. Trying to frame that as captivity came off disconnected from how the legal system actually works, and people caught that immediately. He didn't stop there either. He doubled down by saying that being born and raised in the United States meant he didn't fully understand how serious Korean laws were, almost like that should excuse what happened. That argument only made things look worse, especially in a courtroom setting where accountability matters most. Legal commentators across multiple platforms quickly pointed out that this kind of defense rarely works, especially in international cases where visitors are still expected to follow local laws no matter where they're from. And based on reports, the judge showed no visible reaction that hinted at sympathy, which only adds more pressure as this situation keeps unfolding.
An African-American YouTuber acts lewdly towards 𝗝عني or Statue of Peace. He even sits on the statue's laps and dances.
And this is where things got even more complicated, fast. Not long after that courtroom appearance, Johnny jumped online and went live. And what he said completely clashed with the tone he had just used in court. Instead of sticking to that serious, careful approach, he started making statements that directly contradicted everything he had just presented to the judge, and people immediately caught the switch up. It made the whole situation look even messier and raised even more questions about how seriously he was taking it.
I think Korea is one of the most stupid countries in the world. I don't even think Korea is from the mask and the plastic surgery, majority of the got plastic surgery. I think this country is a second world country.
During that stream, things escalated quickly and made the situation even worse. He called South Korea one of the most stupid countries in the world and even questioned whether it should be considered a first world nation, which instantly sparked outrage. He didn't stop there either. He went on to mock parts of the country's legal system and culture, pushing things even further at the worst possible time. Then he launched into a rant about topics like plastic surgery, which only added more backlash to an already tense situation and had people reacting hard across different platforms. This all went down during the same week he was standing in front of a judge asking for leniency and understanding, and actions like that can seriously wreck any defense strategy because they signal a lack of remorse or respect for the court. On top of that, a group often called the Somali Conviction Team, made up of people closely tracking the case, attending hearings, and documenting every move, quickly pushed those clips all over the internet. So instead of fading away in a live stream, those statements became part of the bigger narrative, adding more pressure and shaping public perception in real time. The fallout didn't stay in the courtroom either. It spread everywhere online, and it only made things worse for Johnny Somali as more eyes locked onto the situation. Every clip, every comment, it all started stacking up in a way that made the situation feel even heavier. Then there's the whole letter of reflection situation, which really says a lot about how he approached this case in South Korea. These letters are a standard expectation in court, and one of the main ways a defendant shows genuine remorse while trying to convince the judge they deserve some level of leniency. So how that's handled can make a serious difference. Most people who are actually serious about their situation submit multiple reflection letters throughout a trial, building a consistent image that they understand what they did wrong and are trying to take responsibility. That steady effort can matter a lot when a judge is deciding how to move forward. Now compare that to how Johnny handled it, and the difference stands out immediately. Reports say he submitted just one letter, and not only that, it came after the trial had already wrapped up, which made the timing look off from the start. That alone made it come across like an afterthought instead of a genuine attempt to show accountability. And in a case this serious, that kind of detail doesn't go unnoticed. It added to the growing perception that he wasn't fully locked in on the consequences he was facing. Meanwhile, another streamer, Youngman, who was dealing with his own legal issues around the same time, took a completely different route. He reportedly submitted 7 separate letters during his trial, showing consistent effort to communicate remorse and responsibility at every stage. That contrast hit hard and highlighted just how differently both cases were being handled behind the scenes. It made Johnny's approach look even weaker in comparison, especially with so much already working against him. At this point, it almost feels like he kept putting himself in a worse position step by step, with each move making it harder for the court to take his claims seriously. Judges often look for patterns, and here there wasn't much showing consistent regret or accountability. On top of that, those viral clips of him criticizing South Korea during the same week were still spreading, reinforcing the idea that what he said in court didn't match how he acted publicly. Then, just days before sentencing, another twist got added. His mother reportedly submitted a petition to the court asking for leniency on his behalf, bringing even more attention to an already intense situation. From a personal standpoint, that move is understandable. Any parent would want to step in and try to help. But legally, it didn't carry much weight in this situation, and experts were quick to point that out. They explained that the timing came way too late in the process, and since she wasn't directly involved in the case, the request didn't have formal standing in court. By that stage, the judge had already seen everything, including those live stream moments where Johnny ended up undercutting his own apology, which made the impact even smaller. So now the situation is hitting a critical point, and there's no way around how serious it is. Even if the judge decides to go slightly below the prosecution's recommendation, which some analysts believe could land closer to 2 years instead of 3, the consequences are still heavy and long-lasting. This isn't just about shaving time off a sentence versus getting the maximum. It's about the bigger picture and everything that led up to this moment. Every decision, every statement, every move has built up to this point. And now it's all being weighed at once. And this is where things shift from serious to life-changing in a real way for Johnny Somali. Because the prison sentence might only be part of the story, with the sex offender registration in South Korea potentially following him back to the United States under the Sex Offender Registration and Notification Act, turning this into something that doesn't just stay overseas. That means the moment he lands back in the US, he could be legally required to register within just 3 days, and that clock starts ticking fast. Once that happens, it's not something you can ignore or just move past like it's nothing. It sticks and follows you in ways that hit everyday life hard. Job opportunities can shrink, housing becomes tougher to lock in, and even basic freedom of movement can come with restrictions that most people don't fully understand until they're dealing with it themselves. It's not just a label, it's a system that can reshape how someone lives day to day, and it gets even heavier when you look at what happens if he doesn't comply with those rules. Failing to register under US law can lead to a federal prison sentence of up to 10 years, stacked on top of everything else already in play, which raises the stakes even higher. So this isn't just about finishing time overseas and moving on, it's a situation that can follow him long after the original case is closed. The consequences don't fade, they build, and each layer makes it harder to rebuild anything close to a normal life. Then there's the prison reality itself, which a lot of people online have been talking about, especially because it may not match what some expect. South Korea does have separate facilities designed for foreign inmates that are more accommodating and adjusted for international prisoners. But based on how his sentence is reportedly being structured, that's not where Johnny is likely headed. The labor classification tied to his charges points toward a standard Korean prison alongside local inmates, where expectations are stricter and the environment is far less tailored to outsiders. And because of the sex offender-related classification, the type of work he could be assigned becomes more limited, adding another layer to an already intense situation that keeps getting more serious at every step. That usually means repetitive, physically demanding work like factory labor or cleaning duties, the kind of routine that barely changes from day to day and can feel endless. There's no special treatment, no comfort-focused setup, just a strict system with Korean food, Korean rules, and long stretches of time to sit with everything that led up to that moment. It's a completely different reality from the online persona that built his audience, and that contrast couldn't be more clear. The shift from internet attention to that kind of structured environment is something you can't fake or escape once you're in it. Meanwhile, on the outside, the internet has been watching this entire situation unfold like it's the final chapter of a long-running series across platforms like Twitter and YouTube. A lot of people are saying this outcome felt inevitable, like it was only a matter of time before things caught up. At this point, the only real debate left is about the length of the sentence, whether it lands closer to 2 years or the full 3 years prosecutors recommended. Based on typical patterns in Korean courts, many observers are leaning towards something slightly below the maximum, but still serious enough to have a major impact. One group that keeps coming up in these conversations is what people call the Somali conviction team, made up of individuals who followed the case closely from the start. They've shown up to hearings, documented developments, and kept the story active online, making sure it didn't fade out of public view. Their role in keeping attention on the case has been widely recognized, especially by those who believe that constant public scrutiny helped keep everything in the spotlight as the legal process continued to move forward. And you really have to look at the role of the so-called Somali conviction team in all of this, because these weren't just random people dropping comments online. These were individuals showing up to every single court date, sitting through hearings, taking detailed notes, and even having legal documents reviewed before submitting their own materials to prosecutors and the judge back in April 2025. They weren't watching from the sidelines, they were actively tracking the case step by step, making sure nothing slipped through unnoticed. That level of involvement made a real difference in how closely everything was being followed and discussed online. What stands out even more is that they reportedly predicted how Johnny Somali would handle key moments before it even happened. They laid out that he would likely submit an apology late in the process, and even argued ahead of time why it shouldn't be seen as genuine, which adds another layer to the whole situation. And when you compare those predictions to how everything actually played out, it's hard to ignore how accurate they were. Move after move seemed to follow a pattern that had already been called out months earlier, and people definitely picked up on that. It all feeds into the growing perception that this situation might have been avoidable from the start, which is what makes it hit even harder. There were multiple moments where things could have gone differently, where a different choice could have changed the direction completely. But instead of stepping back and adjusting, he kept leaning into the same behavior that got him into trouble in the first place. Choosing content over consequences and attention over accountability ended up shaping how this entire situation unfolded in the end. Now everything has built up to this moment, and the outcome is completely out of his hands. With April 15th locked in and approaching fast, whatever decision comes down is going to shape what happens next in a very real way. This isn't just another internet moment that fades away after a few days and gets replaced by the next headline. This is something with long-term consequences, no matter how it plays out, and it's going to stick far beyond the online buzz. So now it comes down to this. What do you think about the entire situation, and where do you see this heading next? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let it be known. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with anyone who's been following the story, because this is one people are definitely watching closely.